Jason wakes up in the morning when the first rays of sunlight stream through the cracks in the curtains. He rises gingerly, not wanting to wake his sleeping wife, Emma, as has been the case almost every weekend for the past 5 years of their marriage. Jason gets up early to go for a morning run, while Emma likes to stay up until the sun comes up. Dressed in his workout clothes, Jason looks at himself in the mirror. At 35, he's still in good shape, and his angular face and blue eyes exude the charm of a mature man. But while life seems to be going smoothly for him, there's a hidden uneasiness growing inside him. Gently closing the door to the fresh morning breeze, Jason took a deep breath and started his morning run. As his pace picked up, the wind whistled and he felt a sense of reality that he hadn't felt in a long time. Running gave him a moment's respite from a life overwhelmed by work and family. As his thoughts drifted away with the rhythm of running, Jason thought about last night. Another night on the couch saying goodnight to each other on the TV, while his wife slept with her back to him. When did things start to get so cold and distant between them? Jason couldn't figure it out. When I think back to the summer after graduation, the passion was as hot as a volcano erupting. They spent all day together, curious about everything about each other. But now, that scorching heat has long since been eroded by the oil and salt. Maybe that's what marriage is all about, Jason muttered in his mind. The passion fades, leaving behind a mess of chicken feathers and hopelessness. Every time he comforted himself in this way, he felt a pain that tore at his heart and lungs. Returning home from his run, Jason was surprised to find that Emma was no longer in her bedroom. This was unusual, knowing that 10 a.m. on a weekend morning was too early for her. Walking into the living room, he frowned at the mess. A few of Emma's clothes from last night were lying around on the couch. Her makeup bag was wide open on the coffee table, and she was nowhere to be seen in front of the mirror. "Ing," Jason called out tentatively, expecting his wife's sweet voice to come from somewhere. However, he was only met with an eerie silence. A sense of foreboding crept over him, and he had a vague feeling that it meant something, but he didn't dare to think about it. Jason took a quick shower and got dressed for the office. He had an important client to meet today, and he had to be prepared. He had an important client to meet today, and he had to be ready for anything, but Emma's business had to be put on hold, and reason told him that work was the priority. Driving to the office, Jason immediately got into the busy work. The envious glances of his co-workers only made him feel empty. He is working hard to give his wife a better life on the one hand, but on the other hand, he is trying to avoid facing the fact that they are drifting apart. Maybe he and Emma needed to have a talk. The thought crossed Jason's mind. Whatever the outcome, it would be better than the current state of uncertainty and half-death. Despite his apprehension, Jason was determined to find an opportunity to be honest with his wife, even if the truth might not be quite what he had hoped for. As Jason drove home, he kept replaying in his mind all the moments when he and Emma met and fell in love. Looking back, he can't even say when their relationship changed. They met 5 years ago on a summer night at an alumni concert. Jason had just graduated from Harvard Business School and Emma was a senior art history major at Boston University. "Hi, I'm Jason Austin," he said, plucking up the courage to strike up a conversation, vowing to get to know this bright-eyed girl. Emma Johnson." The girl smiled shyly, her cherry-red lips lining her white teeth. After a few glasses of champagne, the two of them couldn't stop talking, and they had so much in common, from literature to music, from Van Gogh to Monet. They had so much in common, from literature to music, from Van Gogh to Monet, and Jason was mesmerized by the way Emma danced when she talked about art, and her enthusiasm infected him with eyes that seemed to speak, clear and full of enthusiasm. Since then, Jason and Emma have been inseparable. They ride their bikes together along the Charles River and talk about their dreams. They watch old movies, from Titanic to Roman Holiday, in Emma's apartment, and they attend exhibitions and lectures at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, building a bridge between them. Jason loves the way Emma talks about art. Her blue eyes sparkle like stars when she talks about her favorite paintings. Her blue eyes seemed to twinkle with stars when she talked about her favorite paintings, and Jason often looked at her in silence, his heart welling up with tenderness. At that time, he never dreamed that the passion between them would ever fade away. For years ago, Jason got down on one knee, and proposed to Emma with an heirloom diamond ring. Overjoyed, she burst into tears and said, "I do." In the months leading up to the wedding, both of them were extremely busy, but the love and smiles in their eyes when they looked up at each other never diminished. But at some point, their lives went off the rails as Jason rose through the ranks of his career and held a key position in his company. Jason's heavy workload took up most of his time, and he was often exhausted when he returned home. Emma is also busy with her work at the museum, preparing exhibitions and teaching, and they see less and less of each other. At first, Jason and Emma would talk to each other, but gradually, exhaustion eats away at the desire to communicate. It became a burden to tell each other what was on their minds. The two began to use work as an excuse to get things done. Without realizing it, they became strangers. Silence in front of the TV, drinking alone at the table, coincidentally choose to sleep back to back. All the signs of disharmony appeared. Jason is not without attempts to salvage, buy flowers, watch movies, favorite restaurants. But no matter how hard he tries to please, there is always an invisible barrier between the two of them. It's as if the two of them have become the norm to get along with each other without any warmth. Jason pulled into the garage, but didn't want to get out of the car. Emma's car wasn't there, and it was another night of overtime. However, his intuition told him that it was not that simple. His wife's recent unusual behavior flashed in his mind. Deliberate distancing, hesitant to speak, returning home late at night. All the signs pointed to a possibility that Jason didn't want to face. Squeezing his aching temples, Jason resolved that he would have to talk to Emma sometime. Whatever the outcome, they had to do something about their dying marriage. It was another one of Emma's overtime nights, and Jason was sitting in his study with an important project on his laptop screen, but his mind had already drifted off somewhere. Staring out of the window in disbelief, Jason recalled Emma's recent erratic behavior. Hiding her cell phone screen, coming home in the middle of the night, avoiding conversations. Each of these signs hinted at a possibility that sent shivers down his spine. Although he didn't want to think about it, Jason had an answer deep inside. At that moment, the cell phone screen lit up. Emma sent a text message, "I have a meeting tonight. I'll be home late. Don't wait for me." Almost at the same time, a voice in Jason's head said coldly, "Liar, she must be lying." After much hesitation, Jason decided to find out. He opened his computer and pulled up the location software he had secretly installed. It was something he never thought he'd be able to do, but now there seemed to be no other way. The red on the screen was moving at a slow pace, eventually stopping in front of a bar, and the pin in Jason's hand snapped in two. Emma had never been a fan of bars. She'd always stayed away from the hustle and bustle of those places. So what was she doing in a bar right now? Trembling, he typed the name of the bar into the search box, and the page that came to his eyes made Jason suck in a breath of cold air. It was a dating mecca for couples, known for its elegant and romantic atmosphere and high degree of privacy. With all the clues woven into an impenetrable web, Jason finds it hard to breathe, and he can no longer fool himself that Emma is cheating on him. It took only a few minutes for the suspicion to be confirmed, and Jason slumped in his chair, his thoughts in disarray. Anger, humiliation, sadness, resentment, all of these flavors were stirring in his mind. Why did Emma do this to him? What had gone wrong with their marriage? What had he done wrong? Countless questions swirled in his mind, and Jason felt the heavens spinning. Taking a deep breath, Jason tried to calm himself. He couldn't just sit there. He had to do something. But how? Question Emma? Catch her in the act? Or sneak up on her and find out who she was seeing? On balance, Jason decided to stay put. He needed more proof. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Only when he had all the leverage could he gain the upper hand in the final confrontation. After all, it was his and Emma's life's happiness that was at stake, and there was no room for complacency. Jason began his own covert operations, looking at Emma's credit card spending, her outfits, and even her cell phone when she wasn't looking. He looked at Emma's credit card spending, noticed the way she dressed when she went out, and even went through her cell phone when she wasn't looking. Jason never imagined that he would end up in this situation, but he had no choice. Day after day, Jason is exhausted by the investigation, but gradually pieces together the truth. Emma and a painter named Daniel are very close, often meet in the gallery, and even go on trips together. Daniel is handsome, funny, and well-spoken, which is exactly the ideal type of artist in Emma's mind. In front of him, Emma, who used to be a woman of honor, seemed to be a different person, with a happy and bright look between her eyes. It was a look Jason had never seen on his wife's face before. With the evidence and the truth out of the way, Jason has calmed down. Maybe he knew from the beginning that he and Emma had come to the end. He just didn't want to accept it and let go. Jason's eyes were stung by the divorce papers that landed on the table. What should he do? Let go of Emma and let her find true love, or stay in a marriage that's already riddled with holes? In any case, it was time to end it. So Jason picked up his cell phone and dialed Emma's number. After a long wait, he heard his wife's tired voice. At that moment, he suddenly didn't want to ask anything, didn't want to say anything, just wanted to hug her tightly and tell her that he still loved her, no matter what happened. Emma on the other end of the line seemed to sense this, and she cautiously asked, "Jason, are you okay? What's wrong?" Jason took a deep breath and spoke slowly, "Nothing, just missed you. We need to talk." Emma's heart hung in her chest the moment she received Jason's call. Her husband's tone sounded unusually calm, but there was an uncanny sense of detachment. She had a vague feeling that a storm was coming. Hanging up the phone, Emma took a deep breath and prepared herself for what was to come. She knew that what she had done had broken Jason's heart, and it was time to come clean and receive the punishment she deserved. Pushing open the door, Emma saw Jason sitting at the dining room table with a glass of whiskey in front of him. His gaze fell on her as if he was trying to look into her soul. "Jason, Emma opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. "Sit down," Jason said faintly, his voice tired. "We need to talk." Emma walked slowly to the table and sat down opposite her husband. For a moment, both men fell silent, and an air of gravity hung in the air. "Do you have anything to say?" After a long moment, Jason broke the silence. His tone was surprisingly calm, but Emma felt a suffocating sense of oppression. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Jason, I was wrong. I shouldn't have kept it from you, and I shouldn't have." "How far have you gotten with him?" Jason cut his wife off and stared straight at her. Emma suddenly turned red with shame. She knew that her husband had realized everything. After struggling for a moment, she decided to confess, Daniel and I are really close. We see each other all the time. We talk, we even go on trips together. But I swear, nothing substantial happened between us. I swear, there was no substantial cheating between us." Jason smiled bitterly, picked up the glass and drank the whiskey in one gulp. The spicy liquid slid down his throat, but could not dispel the bitterness in his heart. The word emotional cheating, like a sharp knife, gouged into his heart. "Why?" A moment later, he asked in a muffled voice, "Why are you doing this to me? Emma, are you that unhappy with our marriage?" "No," Emma said urgently, tears coming to her eyes. "I love you, Jason. I really do. It's just that. It's just that the passion between us is gone, and I feel like you're getting colder and colder, and you don't care about me. So you went looking for a new thrill? A soulmate who understands you?" Jason's tone was increasingly harsh and sarcastic. "I've given my all to this family, but in your eyes, I'm just a boring husband, aren't I?" "It's not like that." Emma choked, tears blurring her eyes. "I know how much you've given to this family, and I appreciate all your efforts. But between us, there is no communication, no understanding between us. I feel so alone, Jason. I need someone to listen to me, to be there for me." Jason stared at his wife in awe, not knowing what to say for a moment. Emma's words were like a mirror that revealed all the cracks in their marriage. They are both at fault, both in the busy ignore each other's feelings. But can this be a reason for cheating? Shouldn't problems in a marriage be faced by both husband and wife instead of one of them running away? "So what are you gonna do?" Jason asked, sounding tired. "Divorce? Go after your new life?" "No," Emma blurted out, looking sharply at her husband. "I don't want a divorce, Jason. I really loved you and I still do. I just, I was confused and made a mistake. Please give me a chance to change, okay? Jason smiled bitterly and looked away. Does he still love Emma? He didn't know. The hurt and disappointment of betrayal had made him lose faith in the marriage. But deep down, he longed to get back, to have his wife's love again. We both need to calm down, he finally said with difficulty. Take some time apart and figure out what the future holds. Emma nodded, a spark of hope flickering in her heart. She knew that this was the most forgiveness her husband could offer. Maybe there was a way for them to start over, if only they were willing to make the effort. I'm sorry, Jason, she choked out, and thank you for being willing to give us a chance. Jason nodded and got up to go back to his room. Behind the bedroom door, he finally took off his disguise and let the tears flow freely. Outside the window, the night sky of Boston was still brightly lit, but his heart was in an unprecedented daze. In the face of nearly broken marriage, how to rebuild trust, and how to find the original love, Jason moved to an apartment on the outskirts of town and lived a corporate home life. He tried to keep himself busy and worked to numb the pain inside. But in the dead of night, Emma's image lingers in his mind. Jason began to reflect on what he had done in his marriage. He realized that while he was busy with his career, he had neglected his wife's feelings. There was less and less communication between them, and they lacked patience and understanding. Gradually, they became strangers. Marriage isn't something to be taken for granted. It's something to be taken for granted, Jason said to himself with a bitter smile. He remembered his parents' divorce and the vow he made to give his wife a complete and happy home. But reality is not as perfect as a fairy tale. Jason is learning to see things from Emma's perspective. He understood his wife's desire for passion and romance, and her need for emotional comfort in her busy life. It's not about excusing her. It's about putting himself in her shoes. Jason made a decision. He started to keep a diary to record his reflections and feelings. In this way, he hoped to re-examine himself and find a way to change. Maybe, when they get back together, he can show Emma a new version of himself. Meanwhile, Emma was in agony, and what happened to Daniel had cast a huge shadow over her. She kept asking herself, why did she seek excitement in a good marriage? Why did she give up her husband's love so easily because of a momentary obsession? Emma wanted to dial Jason's number so many times to tell him how sorry she was and how much she wanted to start over, but each time, she hesitated before dialing. The number. Would Jason forgive her? Will Jason forgive her? Will he accept her again after she has hurt him so much? Thus, Emma poured her heart and soul into her art. She began to paint picture after picture, trying to vent her feelings through ink and canvas. In the paintings, there are her and Jason's loving past, her remorse when she made mistakes, and even her hope for a better future. Gradually, Emma found peace in painting. She realized that no matter how it ended, she had to face her mistakes honestly and make a last-ditch effort to save her marriage. Even if Jason couldn't forgive, she had to say goodbye to the relationship with a clear conscience. We are all growing up, Emma looked out the window, murmured. Pain makes us learn to reflect. Mistakes make us know how to cherish. Maybe Jason and I have a chance to start over again. A few months later, Emma plucked up the courage to send Jason a text message. Can we meet? I have something I want to say to you. Jason's reply came quickly and succinctly. Okay. See you at the usual place. Emma's heart was pounding at the simple words. She knew that this would be a decisive meeting. No matter how it ended, she would have to face it with an open mind, because she was still in love with the marriage and with Jason. Outside the window, the streets of Boston are waking up. The morning sunlight pours through the window pane, reflecting on Emma's gaunt but soft face. Everything was about to begin anew. The day of the appointment was fast approaching, and Emma stood in front of the cafe where they had their first date, feeling nervous. She didn't know what the outcome of this meeting would be, but she realized that no matter what, she had to be brave. Pushing open the door of the cafe, a familiar scent greeted Emma as she looked around the room, searching for Jason, who was soon to be found sitting in the corner with a cup of black coffee in front of him, staring out the window. Soon she saw him, sitting in the corner with a cup of black coffee in front of him, staring out of the window. Hi, Emma walked up to him and greeted him softly. Jason looked back up at his wife, and Emma was surprised to find that her husband's eyes were no longer as sharp and distant as they had been, but instead were quiet and soft. "Have a seat." Jason nodded toward the seat across from him, his tone calm. Emma sat down across from her husband, not knowing what to say. She picked up the coffee in front of her and tried to hide her nervousness. "I've been thinking a lot in this time," Jason began, breaking the silence. "About our marriage, about myself." Emma was stunned, put down her coffee cup, and listened intently to her husband. "I realized that while I was busy with my work, I neglected your feelings. The lack of communication and companionship between us gradually lost the initial passion." Jason said frankly, "This is not a reason for you to. I can't justify the choice you made, but I can understand how you felt at the time." Emma's nose was sore and tears were welling up in her eyes, and she was ashamed that Jason was looking out for her and excusing her. "I'm sorry, Jason," she choked out. "I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have hurt you in our marriage because I was confused. I've been thinking a lot about this. I know how much I love you and how much I want to save our relationship. If you are willing to give me another chance, I swear, I will make up for my faults with action." Before she could finish her sentence, tears fell down her face, and Emma lowered her head, not daring to look into her husband's eyes. The next moment, a large, warm hand covered the back of her hand. "I forgive you, Emma," Jason said softly. "We've both made mistakes and we both need to change. Since we still love each other, why don't we give each other a chance to start over?" Emma looked up at her husband with tears in her eyes. Jason was smiling at her with forgiveness and love in his eyes. She held her husband's hand and sobbed uncontrollably. "I love you, Jason. I really love you so much." "I love you too, Emma. So let's work together and make our marriage work, okay?" "Good." Emma broke into a smile and held her husband's hand tightly. That day, they had a long talk in a cafe. Jason showed Emma the diary he had kept during this period, telling her his reflections and feelings, and Emma opened her heart to her husband, confessing her remorse and determination. Both of them realized that marriage needs to be managed with care, tolerance, and understanding, as well as honesty and courage. Gradually, life returns to the right track. Jason learns to balance work and family, and gives more companionship and care to his wife. Emma also treasures her husband's devotion and proves her love with her actions. The two begin to learn to communicate and listen to each other's voices, regaining their initial tacit understanding and sweetness. A year later, Emma gave birth to their first child. Jason's eyes blurred with tears as he held his daughter in his arms. He knew that he and Emma had learned the hardest lesson of their lives. The road to marriage is never easy, but as long as you love each other, there is no obstacle you can't overcome. We must give our children a happy and fulfilling home. Emma, tired and happy, snuggled in her husband's arms. "Sure," Jason said firmly, kissing his wife on the forehead. Outside the window, the Boston night sky is as bright as a picture. The twinkling stars seem to witness the couple's love and vows. Through the storm, they finally ushered in the rainbow. The road ahead is still long, but as long as we walk hand in hand, there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. Life is never easy, and marriage is even more so. The story of Emma and I tells me that love needs to be taken care of and marriage needs to be maintained with action. When the passion fades and the trivialities and difficulties of life surround us, we can only face them with tolerance and understanding and resolve them with communication and compromise. Love is not a matter of course, but need to give and give. Only in the ordinary day to see the slightest knowledge, in the mutual support, the flower of love can always bloom undefeated. Emma and I are fortunate to have regained each other's hands, and we will treasure this hard-earned happiness. If you are facing difficulties in your marriage, I hope our story can give you inspiration and encouragement. Don't give up lightly, don't bear the burden alone. Open your heart, honestly, because true love is priceless, worth guarding with all our hearts. As long as you always have hope, happiness will come. Dear friends, I wish you all to find your own happiness. Love and cherish the people in front of you. Let's use love to light up our lives and warm each other. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.